Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous.
There's a lot of talk about a recession. And guess what? A recession is inevitable. And it is no one's fault. It is not the fault of the Democrats. It is not the fault of the mainstream media. It is not even the fault of Donald Trump. It's the fault of biology. Recessions are inevitable. Why? Because economies work on boom and bust cycles. And not all economies are capitalist economies, and not all economies work with money. The very first economies were those set up by social animals. Our very first ancestors on planet Earth, bacteria, 3.85 billion years ago. And bacteria are built for cycles of boom and bust. In evolutionary biology, it's called a fission-fusion strategy. First, you stretch out and explore. Then you hunker down and consolidate. Then you stretch out and explore again. Then you hunker down and consolidate again. Boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust. And bust, meaning recessions and depressions, are periods of consolidation. How do bacteria do this? Well, a bunch of bacteria will settle on a food source. They will create a stalk. They will grow a stalk that is so rigidly glued to the ground that even our modern material scientists and chemists have not been able to create a glue of equal strength. They will glue themselves to their food source. They will make that stalk a sucking tube with which they can suck the richness out of the ground beneath them. But when they give birth to a new generation, their new generation looks nothing like them. Instead of having a thick stalk like a giant soda straw rooting them to the ground, rooting them to their food, their offspring have a propeller, they have a cilia, they have a whip-like tail that operates on a little rotary motor and operates as a propulsion device. They are built not to settle down, hunker down, and consolidate the way their parents did. They are built to do the opposite. They are built to cruise, to speed, to explore. But no bacterium is an island, just as no human is an island. So bacteria do not do this exploration all on their own. They get together in groups of 10,000, the bacteria with the propeller tails, and they set out across the landscape looking for a new food source. Now, if they don't find a new food source, they die out in the desert. But first they pack up their genome into a neat little package and send it out basically as a message to the home group saying, I have explored this landscape, it is poisonous, it is nothing but death, do not follow me here. Wipe this off your map of potential food sources. But those groups of 10,000 that find a new food source go through a transformation. They've been built like race cars all of their lives. And all of a sudden, that cilia, that propeller of theirs, turns into a stalk, a giant feeding tube that is glued to the ground to allow them to consolidate and suck up the resource around them. And when they give birth, what do they give birth to? They give birth to children like they were in their youth, who are built for speed, built to travel, built to explore, built to find new food sources. This fission-fusion strategy, this boom and bust strategy, is built into virtually every kind of social creature. Paul Ehrlich was the man who wrote in 1968 The Population Bomb, and Paul Ehrlich was always billed as a scientist. Well, what kind of a scientist was Paul Ehrlich? He was a butterfly scientist. And what do butterflies go through? You've seen them in the monarch butterflies that travel 2,500 miles from the south of Canada to the north of Mexico in order to breed. Those butterflies go through boom and bust cycles. They richly overpopulate their landscape. And when they run out of food, they crash. Many of them die. They go through a depression. They go through a recession. Depressions have been a part of human society for at least 2,500 years. And they've operated in the following way. Roughly every 60 years, there is a depression, a massive crash, a massive boom, like the massive crashes of butterfly populations that Paul Ehrlich observed and extrapolated to human societies. Paul Ehrlich, by the way, turned out to be wrong. about his idea of overpopulation and the population bomb. He predicted that we would run out of food in space in the 1980s and that people would start dying by the hundreds of millions all around the globe. That may happen with butterflies. It did not happen to human beings. People are far richer today, even the poorest among us, than they were in 1968 when Paul Ehrlich wrote The Population Bomb and scared all of us to death about overpopulating the planet. We are not overpopulating the planet, far from it, because the more of us there are, the more ingenuity there is. The more ingenuity, the more things that never were resources before are turned into rich, rich resources. But back to boom and crash. Every 60 years, there is a depression. Every 5 to 7 years, there is a recession. This is just the way that biological social systems work. Bacteria are biological social systems and go through boom and crash. Butterflies are biological social systems and go through boom and crash. And humans are biological social systems and go through boom and crash. Normally, recessions happen every 5 to 7 years. We have gone since 2010 without a recession. That's 9 years. That's the longest period of time in the economic history of the United States. 6 years under Barack Obama of steady growth and 2.5 years under Donald Trump. Is recession inevitable? Is biology inevitable? Do you have to breathe? Do you have to sleep? Do you have to eat food? You bet your bippy. And the kind of a system, the group metabolism that makes it possible for you and me to thrive functions under the surface of every human society and every massively social animal society. So recession is inevitable, and despite all of the horrible things that I believe about Donald Trump, it won't be his fault. And despite Democrats like me who protest against him, and he is sure that we have confabulated the idea of a recession in order to somehow sting him, to injure him. No, we haven't invented the idea of recession. Recession is inevitable because even Donald Trump is a part of a larger biological system, a system that operates through alternating between spreading out in search and then consolidating, then spreading out to search again. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for that slimy, slithy, seditious, senile little off button.